Pastor Roger, thank you for visiting with us again today. And the message we'd like for you to share is to help cancer survivors and their caregivers to understand what the term living by grace means. I know it's a term that's often used. I know some people understand it, but many people use that term but don't really understand it from a practical application. Provide us some of your insight and your experience and help us understand that better.
Hi, my name is Roger Thompson. I'm the senior pastor at Berean Baptist Church here in Burnsville, Minnesota. Well, grace is a huge topic, and I guess I would start talking about the fact that I believe in a God of grace. And I'm speaking to you just a couple of weeks before Easter, which we know to be the great accomplishment of God, that grace was displayed by Jesus coming and making a payment for my sin on the cross and the sin of the whole world. And He rose from the dead as a signature to the accomplishment that was made, and all of that was done because of grace. So I want to speak in light of the fact that God is a God of grace, and I'm a recipient of that grace. So when I say that I'm a recipient of grace, I don't mean that I'm the generator of grace. So when we want to live in grace, it's not a grace that we produce, it's a grace that we receive on a regular basis. So there has to be a transfer from God constantly on a daily basis into our lives that fills us and lets us know that we're loved and secure, that we have a purpose in life, and that He will never ever leave us. That's His supply of grace. And until we're filled with that, we will never be able to live in grace. I want to just give you a part of a verse that's often missed, and it's because we as believers, we do this to ourselves, and I think many people think that we are just moralists who have lists of rules that we try to keep, and we just try to keep a stiff upper lip while we're sick and get through it. But listen to the first part of this verse. It's Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "Therefore be imitators of God." And of course that would be impossible, but we miss the next phrase. It says, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children." Another translation says, "as dearly loved children." So if I have cancer, or if I'm a caregiver to somebody in cancer, and I want to live in grace and by grace, the first thing I need to know is that I am a dearly loved child myself. So I would encourage you to do this, to start every day full. Before you start trying to give yourself away, or before you start trying to care for the person who's very needy, or before you try to just muscle it up yourself because you're sick and you have very little strength, the first thing you need to do is start full every day as a dearly loved child. To know that God, the God of the universe, the God who sent Jesus, the God who made all of this and made your body, this God dearly loves you as His child. I have a daughter who just adopted a little baby, a 36-hour-old baby. And when that child was put into their hands, they just made a decision to love this child, and all of her other children, her biological children, are loving this child. So picture yourself in the hands of God as a dearly loved child. And from that basis, then, you can begin to love and to live in grace. So that's the first thing. You're not the supplier of it. God is the supplier of it. It comes through you and it goes out into your life. The second thing I would say is that grace is lived in a life of faith. And what it says in the Bible is that it's not just faith in the outcomes. Many times people say, I have great faith because I believe I'm going to be healed, or I have great faith because I believe the next procedure is going to help. And of course I want you to have hope. I want you to invest energy and hope in those things. But most fundamentally, faith is not in outcomes. It's in a person. So to live by grace is to live by faith in a person, whom I believe needs to be Jesus, who is the Savior, Jesus who's the friend, Jesus who's the supplier of endless grace, and Jesus who said, I will never leave you or forsake you, I'll be with you always. Now that's the beginning of living by grace and living in grace. whether you are the survivor yourself or whether you're the caregiver, it has to come from somewhere. God will supply it. And our hope is not only in outcomes, but our faith itself is in a person. And He will never fail us. He'll always be with us. I have a friend who was diagnosed with cancer several years ago, and when Ron discovered he had cancer, his whole world came tumbling down, as many of you can identify with. He was a very successful businessman. He had 3 boys who were in high school and 1 was in college, and everything started to come unraveled. And as he went into treatment, he was not given high hope for a cure. But as he prayed about this, and as people worked with him, and as his medical condition became more clear, they did find a protocol that put his cancer into remission. And it's been in remission for several years now. But what I remember about Ron is that before he had any confidence that he really was in remission, but as soon as he found out that the cancer had abated and had slowed down, and that maybe he would have longer to live than he thought, he began numbering his days, like it says in Psalms. And so when I would get an email from him, or when I would call him, I'd say, "How's it going, Ron?" He would say, "Well, I'm on bonus day number 45. And pretty soon it was bonus day number 1,315. He just kept remembering every single day was a bonus day. And you know, not only was that true for a cancer survivor, that was grace to me. I need to remember every day of my life is a bonus day. And Ron taught me that because he came through that crucible of cancer.